Good morning, boys and girls. Old Guy Jammin' here with an exciting 1x12 pine board speaker cabinet build covered in Tolex. I'm going to make the mistakes and errors so you can avoid them later on. And then we'll have pricing at the end. At the end of the video, I've added up my expense and I'm comparing it to a Seismic Audio 1x12 that can be delivered to your house free of charge, sitting on your doorstep in about 3 days. Here, we're going to start working on another speaker cabinet. Remember, the last one was just a painted one, which is a whole lot easier to do. And it was a ton of fun. And painted cabinets are great. But this is going to be a pine box, except for the front. The baffle up there will be plywood. But we're going to go ahead and make this and then see what it costs compared to just buying one. Because I'm noticing that I'm getting up in expenses. So I had the wood, so I didn't have to pay for that. This is some of that old 1941 pine lumber that was used in a fruit shed. That was on my buddy's grandpa's property when we were kids. Anyway, you've heard the story about that. It's stamped right here. It's pretty cool stuff. I've only got a few sheets left. But nice, thick, old pine with a Miller's, or actually it's a Joiner's, the Chicago Joiner's Union stamp, which is pretty cool. And what I've secured so far are the jack plates. I had some jacks, but this is an old fender, a curved type fender type washer from a music stand. I'm going to use one of those because I'm trying to keep cost down. Had an extra one of these lying around. Had to buy 4 feet. Grill cloth. You have to buy, at least a yard at a time. They don't sell just 18 or 20 inches of that. Piping. Tolex. Again, we're going with the white Tolex so that it matches the stage right combo amp. This is going to look very much like and be sized to the stage right amp. And you're going to be able to plug this one in and use the stage right combo as well, which is pretty cool. So we're going to be able to make a little mini stack. I got my stage right over there under that plastic, but we're gonna put a parallel jack in the stage right, and then we'll have this cabinet to plug into. They'll both match. So we have all our stuff. So far, the grill cloth is like 11 bucks. Tolex 18. The piping was 11. The nickel plated. These are real cheap. They're sturdy though, nice and sturdy. But they're nickel plated, not too fancy. They were some dollars. The feet were like 12 bucks. I'll have all this added up. This jack plate's another 10 or so. But some considerations. It's glued and then brad nailed, but also I have the screws in there for additional support. I want nice lines on the Tolex, so I rounded all our corners off. Especially on the visible corners. In the front here, another really critical thing you need to think about is that you leave a nice gap between your baffle board and the side of your cab, because you've got grill cloth and piping to put in there, top and bottom. So you'll notice that the bottom has a nice big gap. I've got about an 1/8 inch all the way around the sides and bottom so that my piping and grill cloth will fit in there. And then I'll screw right through the board here, the baffle, into this nailer that I put in back here. Got one on the bottom, one on the top. And I'll pre-drill a couple of screw holes here. I'm going to pre-drill them so that I can find this board, and I'll leave them, I'll drill before I put the Tolex on, so that it'll be easy to come back later and find that hole, because I do want this baffle to be nice and tight. Once it's screwed in, I won't be able to get it back out. And I'm going to rear mount the speaker with screws from the back. Pre-drill these holes here, and then mount the speaker, rear mount it with just some sheetrock grabbers from the backside into these little holes. So I'll be able to get the speaker out the back, but once the baffle's in, I don't want to have to take it back out. So I'll be securing it, once it's covered up, whatnot. I'll put it in, but the Tolex has to be put on first. And then my finished baffle board will go in like that. And I'll find these holes, burn through them, and put some nice screws in, some sort of decorative thing that has this grommet washer thing so that it looks nice. Alright, so that's where we're at. Alright, finished up pine box preparation. Now we're going to put our grill cloth on the front. I doubled this up because it's on the thinner side, so I'm going to just double this up. Shouldn't be too hard. It's not the tweed fabric, so I shouldn't have to pull real hard to get it tight. It's fairly soft. I'll give it a good tug, but not real hard. Anyway, I'll do this side, staple it up with my staple gun. Just pull here, make sure I have enough coverage to get a good edge. I'll start in the middle, pull that up and around, give that a tack. I'll do the same thing all along this edge, and then I'll move to the opposite side and pull that a little tight, not too tight. I don't want wrinkles in this. And then I will cut back my corner with my pair of scissors, just a kitchen shear type scissor. You can go right up here into the edge like this. I will want a little extra to cover that edge, I think, just so it doesn't end up pulling out later. And then once I get all the way around and clean this up, then I'll put my piping on the front. So I got the two sides done. The front's nice and tight, tight enough. It's all good. So I'll let the other side then hang over my workbench. I cut this over so it's just a little bit long like that. And then here, just cut straight down. This little excess will just go away. But this way, when we wrap, we make sure our front of our corner is on the baffle board is covered. So the material's wrapping around the corner. And then this just comes up and meets the other material there, and then our piping will go right around the corner and give us a nice amount of coverage. We won't have to worry about it slipping off our baffle when we insert it into the box. Ready to start putting the piping on now. Before you start, make sure you have enough to go all the way around. I know that seems silly, but it's a good idea. Then you'll want to miter cut one end, and don't staple real close to this end yet. When you put your first staple in, as we start working our way around, put your first staple in 2 or 3 inches from this corner. And this is an upper corner because I'll be looking down at the cab. I want any kind of seams up underneath the top lip so that it's not visible looking down on the cab. But when you put your first staple in, you're going to start right about there. I have this spaced here so that I can be down like this, pushing against the baffle board. And you want to pull this piping down so that the rounded edge in front comes down against the corner of the board. And then we're going to be pretty heavy with staples along this edge. Quite a few, every 1.5 inches or so. We want this to be nice and uniform and tight and stick there. But you put your first staple in 2 or 3 inches from the corner. That way, when we meet on the other end and we have our little miter here in the corner, if we need to pull this out to make that a nice fit, we can. If you put a staple right here, you don't have any give. And this is stretchy enough that, you know, a little long is good, but you don't want it excessively long either. But lay it in there where you think is best, and you can always trim some off. But if you put your first staple there, you'll have enough to stretch over to make that a nice fit. All right. And I know it's kind of scary sometimes, but you got to just do it. And it's going to be awesome. Now, if some of these staples don't go all the way in, I've got my metal hammer, and I can give them a little more convincing should they need some convincing. And then we're going to just take this and shove it inside our box, and it'll look like a regular finished cab. One thing I'm finding helpful as I go around this is to start the piping on top of the board and then pull it down to where the rounded part meets the edge of my board, and that helps draw the fabric in just a little further as well, and make sure I don't have a bubble right here at the edge. And then I'm having to knock these staples in all over, so just plan to have to knock these in nice and tight. My gun doesn't have quite enough pressure to, you know, sink them all the way down. If I had an electric stapler or something, that'd be cool right now, but I don't. So, and this is working fine. It just takes a little more time. But we're ending up with a nice front board. I'm pretty happy with it. Now we start the really scary part. There's the face. Came out fine. Now, putting the Tolex on. Probably scarier than it's going to be, but I'm kind of freaking out. Anyways, I've got my spray adhesive. I've got my cab. I'm going to plan to make the joint at the bottom of the cab, so I've got the Tolex started there. Then I've marked off my turn sections here, so that as I roll the box over, this will be my first working surface. I'll spray that. I'll spray this. Wait 1 to 2 minutes or so till it gets a little drier, and then I'll roll the cab over and press it out nice and good with a block with just a piece of cloth on it. Then I'll spray this section and the top, roll it over to the next section, and finishing over here with the bottom being the last one I work on, because that's where we're going to have an overlap. About 1 inch or 2 of overlap here, and we'll need to cut a single line with the pieces overlapped and then join them using a little bit of super glue, which I have as well, and a tool to rub out the seams, which I'm just going to use a nice big tablespoon. It's nice and hard and smooth, and there's lots of videos online about how to cut your corners and how to do this, and they do a great job, so I'm not going to belabor that. Just kind of showing you where we're at in this build. I'm done with the Tolex covering. It didn't go too bad, but I got some tips for you. First of all, really make use of the newspaper, because that spray goes a lot of other places other than just where you want it. It got all over the bottom of my flip-flops. I went to do something outside, and I came back with a whole layer of gravel on my flip-flops. They're still sticky. So really make use of the newspaper. And then pretty much pretty done. I started with the back because I wanted to make all my mistakes on the back and improve my technique as I went. But overall, it's good enough. My baffle is going to go in the front here. So the corners turned out fine, except that I didn't round them enough for my protectors to fit. I got a big old gap here because I have a sharp corner where this is supposed to be like a 1/2 inch bullnose. I didn't think about that. My cabinet should have that kind of a curvature on the front, and it's straight. I did curve the sides here, so we'd have a nice smooth transition from side to side, but I didn't curl it that much. I should have hit the whole thing with a router, I guess, you know, a bullnose. This is my bottom seam. It came out okay. It's dirty, so I have to wash it up, but for the most part, it came out fine. But the glue is sticky, so I'll have to wash off that glue. So some tips. If you're going to use white Tolex, how cool would it have been for me to have spray painted the inside of my cabinet white? Then that would hide something like that. You wouldn't see as much. All right? So if I had spray painted white, that little mistake would go away. This little mistake would go away. Now I'd be happier. If I'm going to use black Tolex, I would pre-paint the inside of your cab, especially around those corners, to hide any kind of those little mistakes. Tip number 1. It's a good idea. Now, tip number 2. Your blade is going to gum up with glue pretty quick. After your first couple of cuts, it's gummy, and it doesn't want to be precise. So, hit it with some contact cleaner every few cuts, and that way, and then just wipe it off. That way you can maintain a nice sharp blade and not get frustrated because it's all gummed up with glue. So have that on hand. And then you got to have a straight edge too to make some of these nice straight cuts. I use a piece of angle iron because it's cool, straight, easy to use. I trust it. Some test welds. Anyway, so I've got to go look for a different corner protector, but then, gosh, I'm glad this part's done. Turned over. I got a strap. Ignator gave me that. I'll tell you more about that later. And then the feet and the speaker board. Speaker board. We'll go in there like that. Yeah, it's going to be great. Well, I'm still waiting on the corners. Ordered them, they'll be here tomorrow, but I figured I could go ahead and get some stuff done. Put the strap on, got the grill in, baffle board, and it just ended up fitting so nicely. Yeah, I had to just kind of work it in, used a screwdriver around the edges to make sure that piping didn't get hung up on the side, but it just ended up so nice. And there's my seam right there. That's the end point. It's nice and tight. Lower right corner. I couldn't put the feet on yet because I don't know where the corners are going to end up. So if I put my foot too close, it'll get in the way of my corner, etc., etc. There's my handle. And then here's the back. And a little cyberpunk kind of, I guess, going on there with that washer being used as a jack. But there it is. And the ET65, again, held in there with some 3/4 inch sheetrock grabbers. About the best thing in the world is a whole box full of 1 inch and 3/4 inch and 1 1/4 sheetrock grabbers. Those gnarly little wood screws. Cool thing about the handle, this is from Ignator. I talked to Blad down there when I bought a used cabinet from Berkeley. Had to drive down to Berkeley for it. This is a leftover mess. I got to clean up now. Happy Father's Day. It's been great. Anyway, drove to Berkeley for a Tourmaster 2x12, and it had some missing hardware on the strap. Dude said it was, I didn't know about it till I got there. Anyway, got some more money off. It's a great deal. And but because I needed some miscellaneous pieces of hardware, I talked to Blad down at Ignator, and he was cool enough to just send me some stuff. He went in the back room there at the factory and grabbed me a few scrap pieces of what I needed, put them in an envelope, and mailed them to me. That's the kind of company Ignator is. So there's some props for Ignator. Anyway, went ahead and moved forward on this. Nothing that you need to be shown how to do. This Tolex, they say it's an art form because it is. Goodness. It's not easy. So, but for my first try, I think I did okay. But again, if I was to do this again, I would paint the inside where I'm going to be Tolexing the same color as the Tolex. All right. Very cool. Pretty happy with it. It's going to look great sitting under the StageRite monoprice. They'll be running together. This will be an extension cab for the monoprice, so we can run them as a 2x12. All right, I'll get those corners tomorrow, and we'll put the feet on and show you how to hook it up to the monoprice. That'll probably be another video, though. We're almost done with this Tolex cab build. I goofed again because I'm an idiot, and I bought corners that were sharp like this, so they do fit the cab well, but they have a hole right here, which I had to kind of roll the dice on, and it turns out that the hole, you can see there's the hole goes right through to nothing. So I'm an idiot, but it's hard to find the sharp corners. So what I decided to do was Dremel out that hole and make a nice, you know, let's just grind away the stuff that doesn't work. Well, that's my test piece. I always think the camera's on the other side of the iPad, so I'm always pointing the button. Wouldn't you point the button at it? Anyway, so I made these, that's my test piece. So I'm working on these, and they fit pretty well, and they'll look fine. Like in painting a car in high school, you used to call it a 20-mile-an-hour paint job. At 20 miles an hour, it looks great. Standing next to it, not so much. Anyway, but in doing this, I also got some abrasions on there. So what I decided to do, again, when you know, screw something up, well, let's just screw up the whole thing. So I'm hitting my, this is a pumice wheel, and I'm going to just go over the whole darn corner with the pumice wheel. And it actually looks okay, and I think it'll fit the cab fine, and especially if they're all matching. And I can even pumice wheel these so they match, and that way my mistake looks like it was at least intentional. All right, almost done. I don't understand the patience of that Crimson guitar builder. That dude is a miracle when it comes to patience. To be able to spend 3 months on a project without just wanting to quit. Anyway, almost done. Whew. Well, gosh darn it, I'm done. I got the feet on and the corners, and so it's for the most part done. It came out good, but I'm a fan of paint. This Tolex is hard to kind of work with, but after I put this together, I found a video, and you know, there's so much on YouTube, but after I got done with this, I found a video that I wished I had seen before I started, because the dude actually painted in around the corners, and he went ahead and cut, but his technique was a little different. Anyways, it came out nice. If you're wondering why the handle isn't right in the center, it's so when I lift it, it doesn't lilt to one side or the other. The handle is over the specific gravity of the cabinet, so it hangs straight. Anyway, I'll include the video I saw of dude doing a really cool job with one of these. Made it look easy, but he did some things that were great. He painted inside like I suggested, and then he used a nice 3-inch putty knife to get down in that where the Tolex goes against the back support. Just anywhere you had a tucking corner or a tuck where you had to cut it and trim it, he just used the putty knife to get it swedged in there, and then as he was swedging, he went ahead and cut using the putty knife as a straight edge. And gosh, he made the thing look easy, but I think he's done a couple. Anyway, there it is, and now all that we have to do is put some stickers on it and hook it up. Well, wasn't that fun? I'm going to compare this to a Seismic Audio 1x12 cab, which you can get in various colors, various styles, and we got a very nice orange looking one, mojo tone yellow, gold, black, tweed front, but a pretty solid 7-ply birch cab with a removable face, front loaded speaker, for $150 delivered to your house. That's pretty competitive. So the wood, let's start with the cabinet. I had wood lying around, but 1x12 by 6 feet long or so will be $15 from a Lowe's or Home Depot. Piping was $13. The glue, the spray glue adhesive was about $7. So there's your first $20. We'll come back to the 15 later. So piping 13, glue 7. That's your first 20. Corners were 11 and the feet were 9. So that's your second 20. The jack plate was 10. And the handle was another 10, so that's your third 20. Then we have the Tolex grill cloth is 20, or the Tolex itself is $22. The grill cloth 24, so that's a total of $46. Anyway, and then the wood an additional 15. All in all, we're looking at $111 just for materials. And then the speaker, of course, was $118, the ET65. But we're not counting that. So just the materials and the wood, $111 for the cabinet. That's what it cost me, or that's what it would cost you. I had the handle lying around already. That's $10. I had the jack plate that I made out of a fender or a fender type washer, and that's another $10. I had the strap also with the ignitor from the old ignitor stuff. Anyway, so it was fun. Saved me $50, roughly $40. Saved me $40, and I got to do it myself. And it's what I want. It's white instead of whatever Seismic Audio offers, or whatever other company you go with offers. And it's meaningful to me. Can I sell it as nicely as the Seismic? I doubt it, because the job I did on the cab isn't a professional job. The Seismic Audio, I'm sure, looks, if you look closely at the detail, it's going to look better. And that's important to a lot of people over how well it sounds. They're going to be more interested in the look. But hopefully this pine box is nice and bright, because the monotone is a little bit on the darker side, the stage right amp. Anyway, it was a ton of fun. I'm glad it's finally over. Get my workbench back and get on to some other projects. Hope you enjoyed it. Happy trails. Remember that video for the guy that did a lot of things right? That's in the description. Everybody take care. Be kind to each other. Be good to yourselves. Old Guy Jamming is out.